Hi everyone, so today I want to show you how I made this card. Now I'm calling it a centre pop-up step shadow box card. Now I know I'm always thinking of mouthful cards, but I never know how to, what to call them. So anyway, this is basically based off the centre pop-up step card, but it's kind of like a shadow box, which is why I called it, put that in there. And it folds flat for posting, you can go either way with it. That was one I made that was slightly smaller with the pillars, and this is the one we're doing today. So yeah, it's nice and easy, and I quite like it. I think it's quite good, and there's a lot of room for different ideas, so you could have a hanging something in there if you wanted to. I've put this on acetate. This one is just stuck behind this front frame. You could also, if you wanted to, if you had dies that maybe like a scene, you could create a scene, maybe have flat ones on the back, and then instead of doing the full inch here, you could go ½ inch with a little box, and stick another scene on top of that, and then have a scene at the front, so you could have like layers. Yeah, there's lots you could do with it, to be honest with you. You could do a shaker card on the front. There's loads. So yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing today. So this is also, just before I carry on, these are the Oh So Sweet papers. This was a first edition die from a few years ago. That was a Dovecraft die from a few years ago. This was a Docraft die from quite a lot of years ago. And this is an art studio paper that I got in the range. These are from Trimcraft as well. So that's that. Right, so what we need for this card. I'm going to be using the Butterfly Wishes card paper today. And so you're going to need a base card. You're going to need 2 base cards. One of your base cards is 5x7 and the other one is 5x5. So the 5x7 one, you're going to need a matte layer and a pattern layer for it. The matte layer is 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and the pattern is 4.5 by 6.5. So we're going to go ahead now, stick the pattern to the mat, and then the whole thing down onto the base card. Okay, so that's your matte and layered 5x7 card. So we're going to put that to one side for now. Now you need to bring in another piece, which is 5x5. So this is also base card. And then you also need for it a matte layer and a pattern layer. So the matte layer is 4 3/4 by 4 3/4, and the pattern is 4.5 by 4.5. We're not going to stick these down just yet because we're going to be cutting apertures out of them. But before we do that, we are going to move on to the other 2 pieces of card that you need, and we'll come back to this in a minute. So you need 2 more pieces of card that are also 5x5. Now these can either be your base card, which is what I used on this one. So my base card is this pink pearlized card, and that's what I've used on my pillars, which is what we're doing next. Or you can do what I did on this card and just find a pattern card paper that's sort of 200 GSM-ish, that kind of weight, to use as your pillars. Okay, so on this one, I used this same Oh So Sweet papers, and I found the sprinkles paper, and I thought it went quite well. I could have used the ice cream or whatever. Okay, so you can do either of those, or if you wanted to, you could use the mat for your pillar. But whatever it is, it needs to be about 200 GSM. You don't really want to go anything less than that. I'm using these 2 pieces, and this is actually from an old Trimcraft pad, first edition pad, and I can't remember what it's called, but I will try and list it in the description below. Right, so what we need to do with these 2, we need to get our scoreboard out. And then you're going to put the card in, and it doesn't matter which edge you're putting it because they're both 5x5. And you're going to score every inch. So you're going to score at 1 inch, at 2 inches, at 3 inches, and at 4 inches. And you're going to do the same on the other one as well. So 1 inches, 2 inches, 3 inches, and 4 inches. Okay, so now what we're going to do, and you probably know the drill by now because we've done this kind of pillar card many times before. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to make a mark on one of my sides. Okay, so I'm going to call them like sections, pillar sections. So one of my pillar sections, I'm just going to make a mark. If I fold that, you can see that's one of my sections. I've made a mark, and then that side and this one here where I've done a cross, I'm just going to trim a whisker off it, like literally a whisker. Not even a 1/16 of an inch really, it's less than that. But you just need a little bit trimmed off because otherwise it doesn't fold up properly. Okay, so I actually discovered I'd already made a mark on the back, so I didn't need to do any cutting. But anyway, so these two are the ones that are just slightly smaller than the rest. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to fold and burnish all of our score lines. Right, so we've done all our score lines. So now what we're going to do is, where you've got the cross, on the right side of the cross, on the pattern side of that panel that you've made a cross on, that's where you're going to put red tape. So I'm going to cover the whole of that panel in red tape. Okay, so now what we're going to do is so we've got our tape there on the side, turn it over, and then we're going to do what we normally do. We're going to fold 2 of your panels over, take the backing off, and then stick that down. So there's one pillar done. We're going to do exactly the same to this one. So again, turn it over, fold it 2 sections over, take the backing off, and stick it down. So now we have 2 very nice pillars. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to squash them both flat, and then I'm just going to put tape, red tape, on this side, and I'll just pick a side. I'm picking the one that's by the join. And then what we're going to do is turn it over and do it on the side opposite. So you kind of tape a side, miss a side, tape a side, miss a side. So you can see I've gone ahead, I put tape on that side, miss a side, and then tape. Same with this one, tape, miss a side, tape. Okay, so these 2 are now ready to be used when we need them. So we're going to put them to one side for now, because the next thing we're going to do is cut out our apertures. So for this, you're going to need a die, preferably 2 dies, but you can do it with 1, but we're going to do it with 2. And the smallest of the 2 dies, nesting shapes is what you need. The smallest of the 2 dies needs to be no bigger than 3 inches wide. If you go any bigger than 3 inches wide, you are going to see your pillars through your aperture, and we don't really want that. So because of that, you need to go maximum 3 inches wide. The next die you need, if you're going to do like a nesting, can be bigger, because that's not actually going to cut out, it's just going to cut out a frame. That's all that's for. So we're going to start with the bigger die. So this is my 3-inch one. This is my one that's just slightly bigger. So this one measures 3 3/8. So we're going to take the bigger one, the 3 3/8 one, and we are going to cut an aperture out of our pattern card. So I'm going to centre that, make sure I get it relatively centre. It's a bit difficult on this stripy. I mean, the stripes help to get it straight, but top and bottom it's a bit deceiving. So then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. So I've gone ahead and cut that out. So that's what we're left with. So that's my middle piece. You can use it again on a different card. So that's that done. So now what we need to do is take our matte layer, and we're going to put our matte layer on our pattern layer on top of our mat, like that. Then we're going to take the smaller die, which is the 3-inch, maximum 3-inch wide, and we're going to lay it on in the middle so it's nice and central. Tape that into place, take the pattern away, and then run the whole thing through our die cutting machine. So I've gone ahead and cut that out. So that's what we're left with. So that's my middle piece. You can use it again on a different card. So that's that done. So now what we need to do is take our matte layer, and we're going to put our matte layer on our pattern layer on top of our mat, like that. Then we're going to take the smaller die, which is the 3-inch, maximum 3-inch wide, and we're going to lay it on in the middle so it's nice and central. Tape that into place, take the pattern away, and then run the whole thing through our die cutting machine. Okay, so we've gone ahead, we've cut the aperture out of our matte layer. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay and stick my pattern onto my mat, and then we'll cut the aperture out of the base card. Okay, so now we're going to take our mat and pattern combo. We're going to lay it on top of our base card like that. I'm going to put the die, the small die, back in again so it slots back into that matte layer that you've already cut out. And then with a pencil, I'm just going to make a little mark in the corners of the inside of the die like that. Then take this section out, and then we're going to carefully put this back in, making sure you are getting the registration lines proper in place. And then we're going to run this through the die cutting machine and cut this out. Right. So I've cut my frame out. So now this aperture here should exactly match up with the aperture you just cut out of your base card. So then you can go ahead and stick your mat and pattern onto your base card, making sure you keep that aperture in the middle. So you'll end up with that. Now, as you can see, my frame isn't completely accurate, but that's just how it is, I'm afraid. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this over, and on the back, obviously if you've got a right way up pattern, make sure that it is the right way up. On the back, we are going to stick our pillars. Now, what I would do is I would just have a quick look and see if your pillars are going to be okay. If you're going to see anything through the aperture, then you might want to just push it over a little bit so you end up with it on the edge rather than in the middle. Okay, so you end up with that rather than that. Okay, so it's up to you, but I prefer to have it on this side than to have a little bit in the middle. I think it looks a bit odd. You can cover it up, but yeah, that's what you need to do. So now we're going to take the tape off, the backing off one of these pillars, and we're going to leave it squished flat how we stuck it down, so like that. And I'm just going to turn that round, so this is the sticky bit here, and then I'm going to marry this up and make sure it fits. In fact, because I want to avoid that, I'm going to squish it the other way, and I'm going to stick it, making sure I avoid this aperture here. Okay, so as you can see, I have a very, very, very slight bit of pillar on the outside, but I don't mind that. That's fine. As long as it's, I'm not seeing it there, so it's not a problem. This one, I'm going to do the same again. So I'm going to stick that down there, and then I'm going to squish both of them to the same side, to one side. So we've now got the two pillars stuck on the back of the frame. So now we're going to bring our card into place. Now we're just going to turn this over, decide which way we're going to squish them. I'm going to squish them that way, I think. Okay, I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. So I went ahead and I squished this down like this, and then I took the backing off of this piece here, and then this bit was obviously free. So then I lined this up here, and then once I've lined that up, I then stuck that down. So then you were stuck, this pillar was stuck, this pillar wasn't. So then on this pillar, I took the backing off, and then I put it back again, so it's squished the same way, pressed it down and stuck that down. So similar to what we've done on the pop-up pillar card, I'll put a link to that. The pop-up side step card, all the pop-up pillar cards, I'll put links to at various places through this video, so you can see the way you do it. So yeah, so that's that. So I've stuck it down like that, and then what I did was I went and added a topper on the inside like that, and then I'm going to have this on a piece of acetate just floating there. And I was just saying before I realised that it wasn't filming, that what you could have done is I could have stuck this onto another little pillar, but like a smaller pillar, one that's the same height as the topper. that was only half an inch, half an inch, half an inch, half an inch, half an inch instead. Okay, and then that would mean that that would pop forward, but not all the way to the front. So it would have given it a bit more depth. But I haven't done that. I've just stuck it straight in. So now I'm just going to get a bit of acetate, and I'm going to stick this onto the acetate and then stick that onto the frame. Okay, so I've got myself a piece of acetate. So now I'm going to put that down. I'm going to take my flowers first and just work out where it's going to go. And I'm going to leave an even kind of a section top and bottom. And then I'm going to take my red tape and I'm going to stick that down. So one thing you can do is obviously I can stick this down onto this side because I can just flip it over. It's only acetate, so I can flip it over if I want to. So I'm going to put that on like that. Taking the backing off, I'm just going to turn it now like that and then stick it down, making sure it is nice and straight. Okay, so there we have our flowers stuck to acetate. So now I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to leave it the right way up, and then I'm just going to put some red tape at the bottom here and at the top there. And you want to do it on the right side because that's the side that's going to be sticking inside the frame. Okay, so I've added the red tape on. I just made sure that when I stand it up, so obviously I can see it, because you can see it there but I can't see it, when I stand it up, that the flowers are pretty much over, you know, in line with the flowers behind. So with that being the case, I'm going to take the backing off the top, and then I'm just going to put this underneath but keep this on the top, and then I can kind of line it up, get it in the right place there, and stick it down. Okay, so all I need to do now, because that's secured at the top, is I'm going to take the backing off that, and then you can just bend it very gently, like that, and then just press it up and underneath the frame. And there's your frame card. So all it needs now is a greeting, a sentiment of some description, and any embellishments you want to add. So I'm going to go ahead now, find a sentiment and add it on, and then I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, so I've just found a little wishing you a lovely day. So I'm going to stick that at a jaunty angle across the aperture there. And I've just put some little pads on the back. If I wanted to, I could put it there. But I quite like it at a jaunty angle, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on now. There you go, that's it finished. If you want to, I might put a little butterfly in the bottom maybe. But yeah, that's it. So it stands up nicely. You've got room to write on the back. Obviously I'd probably put a white panel on the back so I can write. And it folds flat for posting. So yeah, you can do this in any size you want. So if you want to do a 6x6 size, you could. If you were going to do a 6x6, then you would need obviously a 6x6 base, a 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 mat, a 5.5 by 5.5 pattern. Then your front piece would have to be, it wouldn't be square, it would have to be rectangular. So it would have to be 4x6. Yeah, 4x6 is what you'd have to do for this piece. So your base would be 4x6, your mat would be 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, and your pattern would be 3.5 by 5.5. And it would just mean that your aperture would be quite a lot smaller. So your aperture really, you'd have to change your pillars if you were going to do a 6x6, because if you do 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, this is going to be too wide. So I would advise probably doing maybe ½ inch and then an inch. So ½ inch there, inch, ½ inch, inch, ½ inch. That's what I would advise doing, because if you go for an inch and an inch, that's 2 inches, and your piece of card's only going to be, what do we say, 4 inches? You're going to have a 2-inch wide aperture, which is nothing. So yeah, it's better on a rectangular, to be honest with you. You could do it on a 6x4, but again, this aperture is going to be tiny. So so it's best on a 5x7 or bigger, if I'm honest. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the card. Nice simple one for today, really. After the last couple of showstoppers that we've done. Please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let's see. So at the moment we're just over 7k subs. Let's see if we can get to 10k subs by August. Let's see if by the beginning of August we can get to 10k subs. If we can, I would be over the moon. I really would be. It'd be so good. So let's see if we can do that. So tell your friends, anybody you know who's a bit crafty. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps me out. It helps me out with the channel. Helps me to keep going. So yeah, and I will see you next time. Bye.